Welcome, one and all. My name is Anna Lempriere, and I am a wayfinder. I work for the Cornwall Memory Cafe Network, supporting carers and people living with dementia to access services, make referrals, and really help them find a way to get more support. This is part of Disability Cornwall, and we've decided to create this podcast interviewing experts and people with lived experience on dementia to be able to share all sorts of interesting and informative and supportive information. So sit back and enjoy, and also share the podcast with your friends. It's relaxed and inclusive and welcoming, and thank you for listening. I am your host, Anna Lempriere, and I am very excited and honoured to have Zoe Baxter with us today. I met Zoe a few years ago, I think probably a couple of years ago, through being a wayfinder. So I was going into memory cafes across West, in fact, all of Cornwall at that time, and meeting all sorts of interesting people at the memory cafes. And I think I met you there first, Zoe.
Yes.
But more recently, time has flown, and I think in the last 18 months, Disability Cornwall and the Cornwall Memory Cafe Network have set up a Young Onset Memory Cafe, which is very young and very new. And just for listeners that might not know, there's a difference between early onset, and I've had to learn this myself, and young onset. And that young onset is if you have a diagnosis of dementia under the age of 65, and it's a rare dementia. And it's a much more unknown dementia. And that's how I've come to meet with Zoe. Zoe and her partner, Jeremy, come to the Young Onset Memory Cafe, which is pretty much been going for about a year and a half, where we do things slightly different than the other memory cafes, in the main thing being that most of the people are at least one generation different to the memory cafes, which are excellent, except what we recognized is a lot of the people living with young onset are fitter and still living their lives with children and all sorts of things, which we're going to find out about. So I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to you, Zoe. Thank you for your time.
That's okay.
And I'll start with the first question then, is can you tell us a little bit about your life, like paint the picture of what you used to do for a living and something of your life?
Wow. I was a teacher and I loved being a teacher. That was when I lived in London and when things were exciting.
Yes.
And I was quite wild. Yeah, that was good. And then more recently, I was an elective home education coordinator, but I had to stop that due to ill health.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're both Londoners. I'm a Londoner as well. And you were telling me a little bit about your work, that you worked with children that were
really tricky.
Tricky children.
Tricky children. Yeah. That had sort of lots of issues and were quite wild and difficult to manage.
And you worked with them, supported them. What sort of things did you get up to then?
Well, it was kind of managing their expectations in many ways. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what brought you to Cornwall? What's brought you this way?
Well, we were living in London and Jeremy really wanted to get out. Jeremy, my partner, really wanted to get out of London, and we had some friends that had moved from London to Cornwall, so we just followed them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it was the best thing we've done, I think. Yeah, I'd have been happy to stay in London, but Jeremy really wanted to get out of London. He spent his sort of formative years living in London and didn't want to continue that.
And your whole life has changed. I mean, you're living now in St Just, aren't you?
Yeah, which is just a very lovely place to live. I feel kind of quite blessed that we live in St Just. Yeah, it's a really nice place to be.
Awesome. And you've got 2 children.
Yep. Yeah.
They're
They're yeah, they're doing their thing.
they're doing
So
their thing out
they're
there in
doing
the
their
world.
thing. Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know you've been telling me that you've got land as well. You've got a little bit of land,
We have got some land, yeah. Yeah.
which yeah, which is
Which is
awesome.
nice. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So let me then ask you is when did you first start to feel this, this young onset of dementia? When did you first start to feel that something wasn't right, or that there not necessarily something wasn't right, but there were changes happening within you?
Yeah, I think I felt it quite early on actually. I just realized that things weren't right. There were things that I couldn't do that I used to be able to do before. Like I'd get confused about things and where we were going and what we were doing. And then I
Wow.
realized that something probably wasn't quite right. And then yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So just starting to feel like things were getting mixed up,
Yeah,
confused.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so you just what was the process then? Did you go to the doctor? You went to your doctor?
Well, yeah, we went to the doctor, and the first doctor we saw just stood there and asked me if I could dress myself.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was like, I
Okay.
was thinking, this can't possibly be right. That he
Wow.
didn't know what to do at all. He just was quiet and asked if I could dress myself. I couldn't get over that.
Wow. And then did you manage to then persuade your doctor to do any tests? Did you sort of have to insist? What
Yeah,
happened then?
yeah, there were some tests. There's always lots of tests. And actually, the
Yeah.
tests make him more anxious. I found that all the tests made me more anxious because there was things I couldn't do. But that was then just obviously indicative of what was going on.
Yeah. And who was it? Where did you go for those tests, and what sort of department, or who was it that did those tests then? Was it the doctor, or did you
It
go
was a
to a specialist?
psychologist. It was a
Got you.
psychologist, yeah, who
Got you.
also didn't really understand. Yeah.
Wow. And so do you mind asking, did that mind me asking, did that mean that you had to have a brain scan, all that kind of thing?
I did go for some tests and things, yeah. Um, but it was quite minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like they did the clock thing and I did it well, so they said I was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then saying you're okay, what happens then? Then you just go away and think, well, I don't feel okay, or what happened
Yeah.
then?
Um, what happened then? I think we looked into it more really and
Yeah.
looked at what other options there were. And there actually isn't that many options about what you can do and what you can't do. I think I think we mainly just made it up ourselves and obviously have Jeremy, who was very
Yeah.
nurturing and lovely and made sure that I understood what was going on all the time. So that
Yeah.
was really that was good in that sense. But from practitioners, not an awful lot, no.
So how long do you think it took from you thinking, I don't feel like I feel like there's something not right,
Yeah.
and the way that I'm responding to life in certain situations isn't how I used to respond.
Yes.
So from sort of having those thoughts and those discussions with yourself, with Jeremy, to actually getting a diagnosis, how long do you think that time in between was for you?
Really difficult. I had horrible thoughts. I thought I wasn't ever going to see my children growing up,
Wow.
um, and things like that. So that was quite a dark place because I didn't know what to do.
So once you got the diagnosis, that's when you started to get to feel those feelings
Yes, yeah,
that what was going to happen to you.
yes, yeah. and to those around me. Like I was, had thoughts that I wouldn't see my kids grow up and things like that.
Gosh.
Yeah, that was quite tough.
And did you get support with that? How has that unfolded
Well,
then? How?
I got some good support. I got some counselling, and I found it really tough doing counselling because I think it's just tough anyway.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped. And we were really quite lucky that the counsellor that I had, the children also got some counselling from her as
Okay.
well. So that was really useful, and the kids were really happy with it, and it made them feel sort of better about the whole situation.
Yes.
Yeah,
And was that linked to your GP service and your primary dementia practitioner and all of that,
yeah,
that they made that
yeah,
happen for you?
yes, yeah, and it did make
Yeah.
a huge difference. Yeah,
Well, so I wonder what the difference was then. So one of the things that we hear a lot is, I think there's an inherent fear that people have with dementia. I
yeah,
think it's something that's people aren't very comfortable talking about. And this sort of inherent fear, um, that you can't have a life, that
yeah.
you can't live, your life is gone, it's ruined. And I mean, from my perspective, you are a total and utter testament to living a well and happy life.
Oh, thank you.
can can you say a little bit about that? Can you say, from in contrast to your fear when you started counseling around, oh my God, am I going to lose, am I going to not be able to watch my children grow
Yeah.
up and all of that, to feeling like actually you're living a good life? Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, no, I actually do feel like I'm having a good life. I'm happy. I engage in things, I socialize a lot, and I've felt definitely in the last few years, well, a couple of years maybe, I've just felt like my old self. I'm more
Wow.
confident. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And what do you think that is? Do you think that's sort of settling down and almost like coming to terms? And
yeah, yeah, definitely coming to terms. And I think once you've sort of settled in and think, this is what it's like, then you have to make the most of it. And so I'm absolutely making the most of it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and living life to the full.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I want to know as well about how long it actually took for you from when you first realized to when you got your diagnosis. Was that, how long of a time did that take for you to be told, okay, this is what's happening to your brain?
I'm not quite sure.
Did it feel like a long time or
No, no,
no? Oh, that's
no, it
good.
wasn't a long time. Yeah.
That's really good. And do you know what the diagnosis is then? Talk to us a little bit about your understanding of young onset for anybody that's listening that might have very little knowledge about this.
Yeah. Well, so young onset is obviously for people that are young. And I think it's not very well understood. Um, yeah, because people just think of everybody being old, don't they, when they have
Yeah,
Alzheimer's or a similar diagnosis.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so it was really quite scary to start with, but it isn't anymore because it is just what it is, and I've come to terms with it. And you know, there's lots of people that I should thank really as well, probably like friends that took me to when I had to go to visit in different places, like for
yeah,
treatment and things like that. So, I mean, I've been quite blessed in that sense that I've had a lot of help and a lot of support. Um, and my main support has been Jeremy, who has
yeah.
gently pushed me a tiny bit out of my comfort zones, which has been really good and really useful. And none of it would have happened without him.
Bless him. Bless
Yeah.
Jeremy. And so can you describe your life now? So it certainly doesn't feel like it's limited in any way. Would you do, what sort of things do you get up to in your life?
What do I get up to in my life? I exercise quite a lot. I take the dog out a lot. I like swimming in the sea still.
Wow.
So I make the most of everything that I can. Yeah,
Mm.
in fact, today a friend's just asked if I wanted to go for a swim, but yeah, so
How gorgeous.
yeah,
And so I mean when I was talking to you the other day, you were saying you know, it's not like you can find your way around, you know, St. Just, you're off, you know, you have independence. You don't necessarily need a PA or anybody.
no, not at the moment. You never know what will
No,
happen in the future though. But yeah, at the moment I'm independent.
relatively
Yeah,
independent. And
yeah,
you got your partner, Jeremy, your family and your friends around as a support system, but you
yes,
still, yeah.
yeah.
So if we can think about, you've got experts listening to this, or somebody that maybe have just received a diagnosis that is younger, can you give any advice? What would you, as somebody that's got the lived experience of this young dementia, what would you say?
Um, I'd say don't hide away, which I've just remembered that is what I did initially. Don't
Yeah.
hide away and let people know because people are actually nice and friendly and supportive. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. And so I think as well, what I'm picking up there then is potentially, and I know this through going to a course called Living Well with Dementia, that a lot of the time, and this isn't necessarily for people with young onset, but a lot of the time people that have had the diagnosis don't feel, they don't want to accept it, or they might go into denial, or they might feel ashamed
Yes.
about
Yeah.
it. And is that what you were sort of saying happened at first, or?
Yeah. I mean, at first, I didn't know how to talk to people about it because I didn't know what I was going to, what to say really, because I don't think people would have understood anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then how did you find that way through then? What did you just test it out on one or two people, or?
What did I do? I think I just started putting myself out there more than I had been previously. So if
Yeah,
somebody said, when I was really raw about it, I wouldn't have wanted to go out and do anything with anybody. But, times have changed and now I do those things.
yeah. And you find like you've got yourself back now.
I do actually feel like that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm in a good place. But it's
And
taken a lot of people to get me into that good place. I do want to sort of emphasize that.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, wow. So maybe what would you say to the experts? Because you've had a lot of sort of support around that, have you?
What around experts?
Well, around, like from the diagnosis, saying that you've had counselling and
Yes,
you've
yeah.
had that sort of support. Is there anything that you could say on that? Anything um, that you feel you love people that had the power to do something differently, or whether you want to sort of say that was incredible, that's really helped, anything like that?
Um, I think, well, definitely my friends have helped who sort of come and drag me out when I didn't want to really feel like going
Yeah.
out.
Wow.
And make sure that they always make sure that I'm included, even if it's, something I don't want to do, they'll be fine with that. And yeah, so I feel quite lucky about the people that are
Yeah,
around me and none of it would have happened without all those people sort of making sure that I'm included and happy, really. Yeah.
that's amazing. It's amazing. So sort of understanding, I
Yeah.
suppose, that your life doesn't end, it doesn't need to end.
No, absolutely not. I've got a lot more life left in me. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's it been like then? Be interesting to hear what you sort of feel about what it's been like joining the Young Onset group and being part of that. Has that been interesting, helpful? What's that been like?
No, it's been really useful, really
Yeah,
useful, and it's always good to be with the people that get it basically, and you don't have
yeah.
to explain yourself over and over again. because
Yeah.
they just get it. So that's been incredibly useful. Yeah. And that's just for, I mean, that's for Jeremy as well. I know he's found it really useful. He's learned quite a lot, I think, along the way.
Yeah. Amazing. Any final thoughts, any insight about the journey that you've been on that you could share with the listeners?
I suppose if you feel that something's not right about what's happening to you, I would just say go to your doctor or to your practitioner and ask for some support. And I think people are often a bit scared about asking for support. So I think that would be the big takeaway from me. Yeah.
Yeah. And how not to be afraid of it.
And not to be afraid of asking for support and help, because there's people out there that do help, like the memory cafes and other things. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe. It's been such a pleasure, and can really see how you've really grown from that initial diagnosis and just sort of feeling like all the emotions that must come up and the fear that must come up, and that you've really created a good quality life for yourself.
Yes, I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop.
Thank you for having me.
Hey!
This video was produced by Discover Voices, part of Disability Cornwall and Isles of Scilly. To check out all of our content, simply search Discover Voices on YouTube.